Most of you aren't subscribed. Make sure to subscribe, as it helps out the channel. Without further ado, the series opens with two high school students, Student Council President Suzume Inakami, and her Vice President, Kazuki Ryuzan, walking through the school halls as various students adore and imagine if Suzume and Kazuki dated. At the same time, our MC, Ken Usato, an ordinary student, helps out around the school, noting how unfair the world can be sometimes. As school begins to wrap up for the day, it suddenly starts raining, forcing Usato to return to his lockers in search of his umbrella to head home. Unfortunately, someone must have stolen his umbrella, but upon spotting someone else's umbrella, Usato wonders if he should use that one, but holds himself back, reasoning that he should wait out the rain. With a couple hours flying by, Usato begins to panic, noting that the rain won't stop anytime soon, but just then Suzume appears, wondering why Usato is still at school. Upon learning that Usato doesn't have an umbrella, Usato gets embarrassed, attempting to leave school without an umbrella, but is suddenly stopped by Kazuki, who states that he has a spare umbrella. Surprised that Kazuki would even know who he was, Kazuki states that since they're in the same class, he should at least get to know each other, handing Usato a spare umbrella. As Kazuki and Suzume prepare to leave school, they invite Usato to join them on their walk home, surprising Usato as he's getting a chance to hang out with the most popular students in school. As the three begin chatting, Usato notes how relieving it is that Kazuki is a kind guy, having always seen him hanging only around girls. Kazuki corrects Usato, stating that he only chats with girls, because they constantly flock to him, prompting Suzume to tease Kazuki for being a loner when it comes to other boys, as they avoid talking to Kazuki out of jealousy. Firing back, Kazuki points out how unique Suzume is, being the top of her class for grades and athletics, along with being gorgeous. Seeing Suzume and Kazuki bickering, Usato feels more comfortable around the two, asking if the two are dating. Surprised at Usato's blunt question, the two reveal that they aren't, and the reason they spend so much time together is because of their student council work. Apologizing for the rude question, Suzume actually thanks Usato for asking them directly, instead of gossiping and speculating. Changing topics, Suzume asks if Usato has any goals after graduating, but Usato states that he hasn't put in much thought. Hearing Kazuki share the same response, Suzume reveals that she too has no idea what to do for the future, as most things she pursues are never a challenge for her. Amazed at how amazing Suzume is, Usato suddenly notices Kazuki acting weird, asking if Usato or Suzume had heard any bells ringing. When Usato steps closer to check on Kazuki, a magic circle suddenly appears below the three, making Kazuki and Usato wonder if they are dreaming, but when Usato turns to Suzume, he notes how Suzume is ecstatic at this strange turn of events. Waking up in a strange location, Usato checks to see Kazuki is fine, but when he turns to Suzume, he's weirded out by her gleeful expression. Just then, a king sitting before them introduces himself as Lloyd Vulgust Linger, ruler of Linger, shocking everyone as they've never seen such a traditional king before. With Suzume growing more and more excited, the king states that he's searching for heroes, revealing that 2 years ago, the Demon King had attacked them. Having been able to temporarily defend against the horde of demons, the king states that he fears the demons have grown stronger, and will be preparing to attack once more. Learning that the king used a forbidden summoning spell to summon them here, Kazuki gets pissed, demanding that they be sent back to their original world. But when the king reveals that the summoning only works one way, Kazuki gets infuriated, forcing the king's knights to raise their weapons. Reading the room, Usato asks Kazuki to calm down, knowing that they will surely die if they act out. Just then, the king approaches the three, kneeling before them as he promises he'll search for a method to return the heroes. Seeing the king's sincerity, Suzume asks how the king selected them, prompting the king's assistant, Welsi, to chime in. Welsi states that the summoning spell targets accomplished individuals, and that the heroes should have heard bells ringing before they came here. Surprised to hear this, Usato notes how he didn't hear any bells, wondering if he was accidentally dragged along. Heading to a different room, Welsi prepares a crystal orb to gauge the hero's abilities, but whilst this happens, Kazuki and Usato have a little chat. Apologizing for dragging Usato into this mess, Usato reassures Kazuki that it was a complete accident, but seeing Usato so calm, Kazuki praises Usato. As Suzume excitedly waits for Welsi to finish up, Suzume is instructed by Welsi to go first, placing her hand on the crystal orb, only for the orb to glow a bright yellow. Welsi states that Suzume has a high affinity for lightning alone with a huge mana pool. Next up, Kazuki places his hand on the orb, emitting a bright white light. Welsi is amazed, as the light affinity is rare, being very powerful against demons. Finally, with Usato placing his hand on the crystal orb, a mysterious emerald green light is emitted, which Suzune and Kazuki note as gorgeous, but Welsi is clearly terrified. Dragging Usato back to the throne room, Welsi reports her findings to the king, happy to report that Suzume and Kazuki are indeed very powerful, but Welsi states that the orb turned green for Usato. With everyone speechless at the news, the king begins to panic, wondering if there is a place to keep Usato safe, alluding to someone that mustn't find out, but hearing the king freak out, Usato wonders why everyone is suddenly on edge, only for the throne room doors to burst open. Marching through the throne room, the king is forced to greet Rose, having expected Rose to take the day off, but Rose reminds the king that she serves the king, so she can't take any days off. Stopping in front of Usato, Rose wonders if Usato is a hero, but the king quickly chimes in, stating that Usato is simply an ordinary human. Introducing herself as the captain of the kingdom's rescue team, Rose hears that the heroes are in another room, leaving to greet them. Relieved that Rose didn't discover Usato's green affinity, the king states that he'll have Usato rest up for now, but curious as to why everyone is acting so strange, Usato lets slip that his affinity is a green color, instantly catching Rose's attention, having not left the room yet. Knowing that Usato is in trouble, the king orders Welsi to get Usato away from Rose, prompting Welsi to encase Usato in a water spell, transporting Usato as far away from Rose as possible. Sadly, within an instant, Rose had already caught up to Usato, easily breaking Usato out of the magic spell, and knocking him out. Having found another healer, Rose tells the king that she'll be taking Usato and training him, but the king cries that Usato had been unfairly dragged into this mess. Back with Suzume and Kazuki, they get worried upon learning that Usato had been taken away to Rose's personal rescue team training facility. Hearing that, Suzume wonders what is so bad about being trained, but Welsi utters that Rose's training methods are definitely unorthodox. Cutting to Usato, he has finally regained consciousness, learning that he wields the rare healing magic affinity, watching as Rose calls for several scary men to enter. Introducing themselves as Tong, Mill, Alec, Gamul and Gerd, Usato is clearly intimidated by the five men's masculine aura. Kicking Tong aside, Rose orders the men to be less intimidating, revealing the five men are not healers, but there are actually two other healers on the rescue team. Since there is no one else to train him, Rose states that she'll personally train him, asking Tong to share a room with Usato for the night. With Usato unable to reject Rose's orders, the five men state that Usato is screwed, forced to train with Captain Rose, but Usato notes how he better rest up, fearing what is to come for training the next day. The next morning, Usato wakes up, hoping everything was a dream, but sadly is forced to accept things as they are. With Tong still asleep, Alex suddenly bursts into Usato's room, telling Usato that he's got some guests. Happy to see Suzume and Kazuki, Usato is clearly dreading the training with Rose, having only heard bad things from the other men. To cheer Usato up, Suzume states that she'll be cheering him on, as herself and Kazuki also begins training, motivating Usato to train hard so he can fight alongside Kazuki and Suzume. Seeing Usato act so cool, Kazuki states that he'll train hard too, heading off with Suzume, as Usato watches his only friends leave. Just then, Rose appears, asking to know if the heroes left. Terrified of Rose, Usato formally greets and answers Rose's question, but Rose states that Usato is allowed to do anything he wants, as long as he focuses during training. Handing Usato a journal, Rose asks Usato to take down his training every day, as it will help him track his growth and that training will start after breakfast. With the first day of training starting, Usato notes how easy it is, having been asked to get a sense of the mana flowing through him. Next, Rose hands Usato a book, asking him to read it, but Usato states that he doesn't know this world's language. Surprisingly, upon opening the book, Usato is able to read and understand the book, while Rose states that all heroes have the ability to read and write in this new world's language. Pointing at an image in the book, Rose shows the Linger kingdom that they currently are, is right next to the demon territory, explaining why their kingdom is the first to be targeted by demons. As homework, Rose asks Usato to study the book, as it contains everything one needs to know about this world's nations, races and demons. On day 2, Usato was forced to train his physical state, running endlessly all day. On the third day, the running was amped up, with Rose forcing Usato to run until he couldn't anymore. As Usato trips due to fatigue in his legs, Rose simply casts healing magic on his legs, healing the soreness of Usato's muscles. Rose states that Usato is to run forever no matter the pain, as she'll simply heal any soreness he has, but Usato finds this annoying, choosing to write about this in his journal. The next day, Usato is seen running alongside the other men, but sadly is lapped by all of them. Finding it annoying that Rose is making fun of him for being slow, he chooses to write about it in his journal, instead of saying it to Rose's face. With day 5 and 6, Usato continues to run all throughout the day and even through rain, but when Usato trips, he gets really pissed at the training he's being put through, but suddenly notices a green light emanating from his palms. On day 7, Usato was put through hell, being beaten up all day by Rose, making Usato wonder if Rose was able to read his journal, but he reasons it's impossible as he wrote in a different language. With the same beating occurring on day 8 and 9, Usato, once again is suddenly able to manifest 2 green healing lights on both of his hands, noting how the pain from the beating is suddenly gone. On the 10th day, Usato notes how he can manifest his healing magic whenever, allowing him to run continuously without any fatigue. Worried that running all day would be wasting time, Usato suddenly hears Rose screaming for him to add extra laps, holding in his anger as he rushes to finish off the laps. On day 11, Rose had Usato do push-ups, but as Usato cycles between push-ups and healing, Rose states that in the midst of a battle, running away from enemies and running to allies will be the most crucial role of a healer. The next 2 days, Usato was asked to run in the mornings and perform push-ups during the evening, amazed at how light his body feels, but having caught on, Rose added several weights to add resistance to his training. One day as Usato was heading to grab his lunch, he had found out that Tong had stolen and ate his lunch, running after him to get revenge, but wondered if this was all Rose's doing. With another week passing, we see Kazuki, Suzume and several others visiting Usato, but upon reaching Usato's location, they are shocked at Usato's training. With a block of concrete and Rose sitting on top of Usato, Usato is forced to perform several push-ups, but not wanting Rose to make fun of him, asks Rose to give him more weight. With the help of his healing magic, Usato manages to perform push-ups with 2 concrete blocks, impressing Rose, as Usato is progressing faster than she expected. Seeing Usato's muscles expand rapidly, Suzume and Kazuki can't help but stare in admiration, but seeing Rose torture Usato, Siglus the Royal Knight grabs a hold of Rose, demanding that she halt her training. Glaring at Siglus, Rose states that although Siglus has his way of training, Rose states that Usato is special, as Rose plans to have him be her right-hand man, praising Usato's unrelenting will to push through adversity. Needing time to speak with Siglus alone, Rose asks Usato to have lunch with Suzume, Kazuki and Princess Celia. Having found a nice place for a picnic, Usato learns that Commander Siglus is the kingdom's strongest knight, and has been assigned to teach Suzume and Kazuki sword fighting. Wondering who the princess is, the princess apologizes for the late introduction, introducing herself as Chelly Vulgust Linger, making her the daughter of the king. With the princess asking Usato to be comfortable around her, she unveils an apple pie that she has brought, pleasing everyone as they enjoy the delectable tastes. Turning to Usato, Kazuki asks if Usato's training is as brutal as what they saw, but is surprised to hear that today is one of the lighter days. On the other hand, Kazuki states that himself and Suzume are learning swordplay from Siglus, whereas C teaches them magic, a complete contrast to Usato's brutal training. As Usato reaches for another slice of pie, Suzume can't help but check out Usato's new body, amazed at his washboard abs. With a grimmed expression, Kazuki can't help but feel sorry for Usato, but Usato reassures everyone that he's grown used to this brutal place, having initially wanted to run away, but as time flew by, Usato adapted and felt more comfortable. Seeing and hearing that Usato has grown greatly, Suzume and Kazuki are relieved, but the three are suddenly interrupted by Tong. Having brought Usato some lunch, Usato only gets pissed to see Tong holding his lunch, prompting the two to get into a little fight. Knowing that they are being left behind, Suzume and Kazuki return to the castle, striving to better themselves just like Usato. As Usato sits in a hot tub, he states that he's proud of how his body has become, but wonders if he has the mental capacity to make use of his new body on a battlefield. The next day, Rose and Usato finally head out, leaving the kingdom and heading to a forest nearby, renowned as the Darkness of Linger. Rose asks Usato to hunt down a grand grizzly, but Usato gets terrified, reading that blue grizzlies turn into grand grizzlies only after 100 years. Rose reassures Usato that he should be strong enough by now to take one on, but having heard enough of Usato's whining, Rose simply picks Usato up, tossing him into the middle of the forest. Check out one of our other videos on the screen or in the info card above. Subscribe, like and comment.